Hi there, I'm Isanali A. Shaw, and you are watching me on YouTube and Facebook Live, and also in the group Love Virus. Today, we are going to talk about the social impact of fast fashion or the fashion industry. Last week, we had a very detailed discussion on the environmental impact of the fashion industry, and today we are going to talk about the social impact that how fashion industry is jeopardizing and destroying the family values, the very fabric of any civilized society. And the question is how? It all starts with the perception of looking good. The fashion brands, fashion icons, and fashion models, they set up trends and set up standards for people for ordinary people like the youngster teenagers to follow and those teenagers, they don't look at them like the adults do. They don't look at them like any business. They look at them like some kind of idol. They want to follow them in order to look like them, because not everyone has the skinny body or the right model type physique. Everyone is different. Everyone is beautiful in its own way. But when you set up a standard, when you set up trends for young minds to follow, then this they often they get on to drugs like heroin to kill their appetite. When you use heroin a few times, then you get addicted to it. You get it after a few times, and when you are addicted to drugs, then the person is willing to do anything. The craving and temptation of the drugs compels you to take all types of wrongdoings. It could be prostitution, it could be crime, it could be burglary, it could be theft, it could be stealing, robbery, or anything. You are willing to commit any crime to just to get a piece of drug, and because those people are addicted to it, and it's a common thing. The drugs are very common in among fashion models and in the fashion industry. And when a person commits a crime and he is caught up in the process, yeah, and ends up in the jail, and that person is not destroying his life, but the frustration and anxiety and the humiliation the family and the loved one goes through is unimaginable. And that's how the fashion industry is linked with crime, it is linked with drugs, and drugs are linked with crimes. That's how it's impacting the very fabric of the society. Personally, I like being looking good. I like the fashion of looking good, but but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at just looking good. It goes much further than that. And today we are going to have a roundtable discussion. And I welcome all of you to our roundtable discussion. And my first guest is Jackie McGraw. She has joined us from Gold Coast, Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. And my second guest is Gary Merck. He is a phytoaromacologist. He has joined us from Alberta, Canada. Hey guys, how are you?
Hi. Really
Doing
good, thank
beautiful
you.
on this
Yes.
fashionable Tuesday, right?
Yes, yes, and it's a very. I think we are fortunate that Jackie has come back and joining us again. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us. And
Thank you for having me
Jody,
again.
yeah, Jody is going to join us soon. And I'm gonna start with
Soon as she gets tagged in, she'll join us in. If maybe she got her
great.
times off, but
Yes.
we'll make it
What
work, right?
about I'm gonna start with I'm gonna start a question that to both of you. Whoever wants to go first, okay. Both of you have the choice. The
I'll have to
question
jump in
is,
quick here.
yes, and as I said, that the fashion industry is connected with drugs. drugs are very common among the fashion models and in the fashion industry. And drugs compels you to commit crimes.
Yep.
That when you commit a crime, then do end up ends up the person is ends up in the jail. That's how it is impacting the very social setup of the society.
Hmm.
Mhm,
Yeah, I
I'll
agree
let Jody
though.
go first. I
mhm.
haven't seen her for a while,
Yeah,
so I'm just
yeah,
waiting for
mhm,
her to bubble up on this one.
mhm, mhm.
Me? Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
you.
yes, yes.
I'm sorry. Um,
Mhm,
Look, it's a big thing. Drugs were a big
mhm,
thing, I guess,
mhm,
in and probably still are. I'm a bit
mhm,
oblivious to it at the moment, but
mhm,
especially with models trying to. At one stage, I know it's changed a little bit now. They have like your bigger size models, and we're all embracing
mhm,
all shapes and sizes now. But at
mhm,
one stage, the thinness of those models was so detrimental to their health. And
mhm,
we even began seeing models fainting on the stage, and they just didn't have the even energy to walk, because
mhm,
of that image of having to look thin, and how many.
mhm,
I've heard so many stories that some of my girls' friends who've maybe gone into modelling and told that they were too fat. And
mhm,
honestly, I was shocked because some of these girls were so thin,
Hmm.
and
mhm,
the stress that's put on them to try and lose weight
mhm,
again, and what that does to their self-image, being told that they're
mhm,
fat. My daughter was a dancer too, so she was in that industry where when she was doing her dancing courses, like you couldn't be overweight, you couldn't show
mhm,
anything, like you had to work so hard. She worked so hard but she did it in a healthy way, like
mhm,
there's through exercise and what she ate, but the pressure on them is so enormous, otherwise you don't get
mhm.
work. It's plain
Yeah,
and
pressure.
simple.
Yeah, the pressure compels you to take drugs when you're living in the
Yes.
culture. The culture is a drug culture.
Yes.
It's a very common thing in Hollywood and also in the fashion industry, the film movie industry. If you don't
Well, it's very much
adopt this,
easier.
mhm, mhm,
It's much easier to pop pills, isn't it, than to do any hard work around it. And
Hmm.
the
mhm,
pills, of course, going back to the pharmaceutical industry,
mhm,
everything is pushed like that. The drugs are
mhm,
so bad for you in so many ways, and they're
mhm,
demoralizing. They do something to your soul, and then when
mhm,
you do become addicted to these things, your
mhm,
soul and your spirit, everything just is dampened, and then you need other drugs to lift you up and down, and it's all controlling your moods, your soul, your
mhm,
spirit, until you really don't even know yourself anymore, and then there's
mhm,
that need to keep having to do all the things that you were talking about, maybe steal or deceive, or
mhm,
not be the nicest of person and manipulate to get more money
mhm,
for these drugs. Or sometimes
mhm,
people, I know in the sex slave industry, it's going off a little bit, it's probably the same in fashion, but
mhm,
they get you hooked on drugs so that you have no other
mhm.
choice but to stay with them, and the money's
Yes.
going straight back to them. You're not earning anything. It's
Mhm.
very hard to
You're
break
just
out of
giving.
that cycle.
Mhm. Yeah, some models they end up in the porn industry
Hmm.
because of the
Mm-hmm.
drugs, because they need money to buy drugs, and they are on drugs. They are willing to do anything. They have lost all types of morality and ethical values, and to them it's just a normal thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'd
Mhm.
like to think that it wasn't normalcy, but this world at the
Yeah.
moment is so
Mhm.
crazy. We're just coming so far away from ourselves, and our, it's all dampening our creativity,
Mhm.
our self-expression. We've all
Mhm.
got to be looking a certain way and doing things a certain way, and we're
Mhm.
just losing our expression of our own style,
Mhm.
rather than fashion and style, two different words, right?
Mhm.
Fashion is the fashion of the time, and everything's changes. They manipulate for money so that we're buying these clothes, and and most of the mass-produced clothes now are something I've noticed. I don't know if you two have noticed it where you
Mhm.
are, but I noticed it
Mhm.
with women's fashions. I didn't buy anything for years because the colours are so dull and wishy-washy to sort of bring us down again to being manipulated into a certain mood. You know, the brightness of the colours, nothing was there anymore. Like you think of the 70s and the beautiful colours and the hippie era, and, you know, and such beautiful colours, and that vibration was really high. And we all know colour has vibration. And the colours that I've been seeing are just so, they're either neutral or they're just the wishy. I can't even describe the colours. They're not even pastels. They're just like faded, washed out colours that are just do not lift your spirits at all. And I wonder if that's a bit of a manipulation too on us all, like everything else. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, Donna, for joining us. And she said, "Good day, Hassan, Jackie, Gary, big love from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia." Thank you. I
Hi,
think Donna
Donna.
lives in. I think Donna lives in your area. She is in Queensland, isn't she?
She doesn't. She
Have you
lives
met?
about an
We'll,
hour
we'll,
from
we'll
me.
get her
Yep.
on here one of these evenings because she's
I
got a
hope
Yeah,
voice,
so.
and
yeah,
and I think we'll get her up here. Okay.
I hope
yes.
so.
We'll get happy.
So
We'll
Now,
work on
I
it.
would like. Now, Gary,
fashion.
I would like to ask you that all of these things are connected with each other. Is drugs, is the pressure on the young girls to look thin, and the stress they go through, and the families, the frustration on the family, and the crimes they commit, they are willing to commit. It's
Firsthand,
just.
yeah,
Mhm,
firsthand, I've been in it. I've been a model. So
mhm,
going back many years, I've done lots of
mhm,
things. Was in the
mhm,
modeling, in the runway shows, doing lots of things. And believe me, drugs were
mhm,
rampant. Okay, there was
mhm,
blow on a table. You know, if you want, don't know, nobody knows what blow is. Well, that was cocaine. You had cocaine, you had the pill
mhm,
poppers, you had the speed, you had everything that was made available to you. There was also the
mhm,
casting couch, as we called it. And the
mhm,
casting couch was quite simple. You want to get
mhm,
further ahead, sleep with the
mhm,
photographer, male or
mhm,
female. And when
mhm,
that hit, I walked. That was enough. Okay. So fashion from the inside of it. And
mhm,
I see it from many different angles. One,
mhm,
from being in many different professional fields. Two, I love fashion. I have my own style. I don't follow what's in style. I follow with what I want to wear. Okay,
mhm,
that's the way it is. And if you don't like what I wear, then so be it. That belongs to you. But what has
mhm,
it done to our industry? One, it's created this false image of
mhm,
what we expect mainly a woman to be. Okay, we
mhm,
expect them to be tall and thin and lanky, and
mhm,
all of this in perspective of here's the perfect woman. If we go
mhm,
into the the shows, for example, the women that are chosen to be on the show, they're all the same size, they're all slim. We can go
mhm,
into many different angles of how this has worked out. And then when they burn out, they end up maybe in the porno industry, or they end
mhm,
up in the sex slave industry, or worse yet, other things that happen. It's a
mhm,
very deep, dark circle. And when we
mhm,
look at the clothing being manufactured, it even gets darker, because now
mhm,
there's child labor, there's child slavery, there are conditions that are atrocities that are
mhm,
making your Gucci handbags and your Fendi shoes all in the name of a brand and style. They say
mhm,
that this has been changed. No, it hasn't. It's actually gotten worse. In fact, look at the latest runway shows, and you don't know what's a male or a female anymore because they're dressing all sorts of different things. So,
mhm,
where is it taking us? It's
mhm,
creating this disconnection from society, because
mhm,
now it's like, in order to be accepted, we have to dress a certain way, we have to have a certain style, and if
mhm,
we don't, well, then you're looked down upon, or you're looked at being a poor person because you're not wearing the latest in styles. And
mhm,
what we see is this mass addiction of a consumerism. How
mhm,
many people have hundreds of pairs of shoes? I've seen I've seen ladies, sorry, and I'm not picking, on Jackie here. I'm not saying that's the
mhm,
case, but I've met
mhm,
ladies along my way that have wardrobes. One room is shoes only. And there's
Mhm.
enough shoes in there that have 100 people could wear them. Why?
Mhm.
You know, I question this. You know, like what is the purpose of being wearing something that first off is damaging to the foot, okay,
Mhm.
damaging to the legs, damaging to the toes, and all in the sake of style.
Yes.
It's out of proportion. I mean, let's face it. We used to live in forest and wore loincloths and leaves. You know,
Mhm.
I think it was a lot simpler. You know, we knew what we were wearing, but there was no waste of anything. And now we're in today's world where everything that we're wearing is made of
Mhm.
materials that are toxic, made of
Mhm.
chemicals that are carried on them. You know, we're absorbing it into our skin. It leaches. We wash it in things that, you know, you know, washing materials that are leaching chemicals into us, leaching it into the waterways. So it's quite a vast detriment to society and the
Mhm.
social impact of what it's doing. And then there's you know, the ripped jeans syndrome. You know, it's like
Mhm.
ripped jeans. You're spending $300 for them. My God, come to me with your jeans. I got a belt sander. I can make your
Mhm.
jeans look like that. Okay,
Yes.
all for the sake of style, which puts pressure on parents because
Mhm.
now the peer pressure is in school. They got to have the ripped jeans, they have to have the Nike shoes, and then we can
Mhm.
get into the latest Nike shoe that has blood in it. Okay,
Mhm.
it's
Mm.
sickening. Okay, if you haven't seen this commercial that
Mhm.
sells this pair of running shoes with blood in it, don't.
Mhm.
It's very deep, ugly darkness. It is totally sick. And anybody out there that's bought in these shoes for the sake of buying them is just as sick as the person that's trying to promote this. This is
Mhm.
where it's totally taken out of proportion. Okay, we look at women in a way, you know, we've been programmed that they have to have a certain look, and the same thing for men. I mean, it's not just
Mhm.
women, it's also with men. I mean, if I go into the styles of men in the runway shows and, you know, the Jean-Paul Gaultier and all of this, believe me, it's the same thing that happens. Okay,
Mhm.
it's out of proportion where most of the things you can't even wear. So what's the sake of this? Well, you know, what is the purpose of a Gucci handbag to walk down the street and say I have a Gucci? Okay, to
Mhm.
show that you have status.
Mhm.
Okay, shows you have money, money to waste.
Mhm.
Doesn't make who
Yes.
you are. Okay, if
Mhm.
anybody looks at somebody in the regards of fashion as to who they are as the statement, then they're not seeing the human that's behind or underneath the clothes. And in a
Gary,
world where we're all
Gary,
connected by heart, it's
mhm.
not by our clothing that connects us. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't look at what you're wearing. I mean, I'll be honest
Mhm.
with you. If
Mhm.
you're wearing something that's hanging down to your knees, I mean, I have
Mhm.
an opinion. I think it
Mhm.
looks kind of silly. Okay.
Mhm.
But if you want to wear that and trip over your knees going down the street, well, so be it. Okay, I choose to, you know, choose to wear things that are functional and choose to
Mhm.
wear clothing that is comfortable. And the
Mhm.
majority of the fashion available to men, it's very strifing on the skin. It's very chaffing on the skin. It's not soft. I mean, I walk into the ladies section and every one of the materials are nice and soft and silky and
Mhm.
smooth. And I'm
Mhm.
going like, why do I have to wear something that rubs me the wrong way when I can
Mhm.
wear something that is soft and cuddly? Okay.
Mhm.
And believe me, I wear things like this. And people, you know, I've had the comments that come up and say,
Mhm.
oh, Gary, I mean, like, I
Mhm.
didn't know you were that kind of a guy. Really?
Mhm.
Why? Because I wear leggings?
Mhm.
Doesn't make
It's
me
Gary.
any more of a man if I wear leggings because they're comfortable and warm versus a pair of jeans that's chaffing me in a way that is uncomfortable. You know?
Mhm. And Gary, thank you, Donna, and thank you, Edwin, for joining us. And Gary, it has risen a very good question. We have talked about the impact of fashion industry in terms of drugs, in terms of crimes. Now there's another impact of fashion industry. It's about the standards they have set that a guy wants a certain type of girl and girl wants a certain types of a man. So they don't choose a person
Yeah.
the way he is, the fashion industry, the models, the icons, the promotion and marketing campaigns, they have made up the minds for you. For instance, you like someone, but they have manipulated your mind, so you are not going to accept the person you like. You're going to choose
Yeah.
someone else because of the trends or the standards, the false standard and the false trend.
Yeah.
They make you to make wrong choices.
That's a
Do we
whole.
do we all have to
Mhm,
come back to let's all be naturists, eh?
mhm, mhm.
Oh, does that
Yeah,
mean we get to
yeah.
walk in the beaches without any clothes on?
Anywhere you
Yes, I
like
love
without any
that.
clothes
I
on. Oh
love
my
that
god.
Hey,
idea.
there we go.
I love this
Thumbs up
idea.
for me.
The
Yeah,
only thing I
both
don't
hands up. And
Yes.
now that opens up a little bit of a controversy because many
Mhm,
people don't know how to appreciate the
mhm,
body.
yes.
We look at
We'll
the
be
body
very
and we make
critical.
fun because
mhm,
you have a beer belly or you have
mhm,
this or you have that or whatever. We're
mhm,
seeing only the physical vessel. The vessel
mhm,
that goes
Mm.
back to dust. But what about the
mhm,
spirit, the soul, and the heart?
mhm,
I have
Mm.
spoken to people that, regardless of your size, your color, your shape, your whatever, and I speak to the person because I'm speaking with them with interest.
mhm,
You know what? We all, as men, we have all the same sort of a thing.
mhm,
It's there. Okay,
mhm,
different sizes, different shapes, all sorts of things. I mean,
mhm.
that's the only thing you fix on
Every,
looking, then maybe you should
yes,
go home
indeed,
and figure
Gary.
out what you're looking at.
Everyone is different and everyone is beautiful in its own way. We just
Yep,
don't have to set up the standards and label them that that one is acceptable and that one is not acceptable.
yep.
Everyone has a right to wear and to choose a style whatever he likes. I think that's what the fashion industry should be about. We are seeing some changes, but we have a long way ahead of us. It's a long way to go.
But it gets kind of disstrued in many ways. I mean,
Mhm,
look at
mhm,
in down in the United States, fashion is also carrying your arms in open public. I mean, you
mhm,
go into a toy store and you can see somebody dressed with fashion. He's got an AK-47 on his back.
mhm,
Like really?
mhm.
Okay,
Mhm,
where is this? It's a fashion statement. So we
mhm,
can go into a lot of different perspectives of how fashion is being used in many different ways, whether it's aggressive, whether it's not. Again,
mhm,
we're using it to judge people by because that's the way we've been programmed to see fashion. If you're not
mhm,
in fashion, you're not accepted. If you're
mhm,
not a certain shape, you're not accepted. It's why we've lost touch with what it is to be human.
mhm,
Let's strip away fashion
mhm,
and what is it to be human? Because
mhm,
if we're human, fashion doesn't even make a difference,
mhm,
really. If you're dressed and you're dressed well to your perspective, doesn't mean
mhm,
like dress with half this and half that and look like
mhm,
there. And then maybe that sounds judgmental, but there are
mhm,
ways that respect of self as well. I'm not
mhm,
saying to somebody who's on the street and living a certain way because they've either chosen or been forced
mhm,
down to the street, but even
mhm,
then I'm not looking at what they're wearing. I'm looking
mhm,
at who they are as the person.
mhm,
And that is the first thing that I see in anybody.
mhm,
You can have a fancy hat on. I'll acknowledge it.
mhm,
But I'll guarantee you one thing: I see your eyes before I see the rest of you. Because if you're not
mhm,
looking at me, why
mhm.
am I going to engage in conversation?
Yeah,
You're looking
you have
down.
to you have to develop an eye connection with the person you are going to communicate. If you're just looking at the clothes, then you are looking at the person's wealth or money or bank account. You are not
Yeah,
looking his soul. You are not looking at his soul through his eyes. You're not going
it's
to have a
gone
deep
so
connection.
crazy
Yeah.
that when you look at some of the social media platforms and
Mhm,
how women
mhm,
are presenting themselves and even how men are
mhm,
presenting themselves, we've taken it beyond what I consider to be an acceptable level in the sense of respect of self.
mhm,
It's all right to show your body. Got nothing wrong
mhm,
with that. But if you're
mhm,
using your body as a lure to hook
mhm,
somebody in or to create a fantasy, it's
Mhm.
for me, it's something I don't accept. I don't need
Mhm.
you to flaunt and push and shove
Mhm.
it in front of me to say that I'm going to acknowledge you're beautiful.
Mhm.
I'm going to acknowledge you're beautiful regardless of that, because I'm going
Mhm.
to see, oh, Jody's here. Okay.
Jody is here and she wants. Okay, Jody, if you're listening, just click on the link I've sent in the messenger, and I'll tag you in. I'll tag you in from here. I'll take you from here. Okay. Yes, I
Then we
can.
can give
Can
Jody a
you
chance
just?
to speak.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
when it can
Mm.
you, yeah. Okay. I'll send her the
Can
link.
I
Hold
just
on a second.
say? Can I
Okay.
just?
Now I'm gonna. Yes, I'm gonna move to Jackie. You are going to say about accepting the nature and being with the nature. Now, before Gary interrupted you, and you, okay, things got
Yeah,
messed up.
and you know what? I get that it's not
Mhm.
appropriate at times because they had. I know they've had nude yoga classes here, and I
Mhm.
think I would laugh myself silly. I mean, all I could
Mhm.
think of was everyone doing downward dog. Like
Mhm.
and I don't know whether you'd
Now
want
I'm
me at the
getting
front or
red
the
just thinking
back,
about that one.
at the front or the back of the class for that.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
you know, as Gary was saying, and
Mhm.
women are the most critical of themselves,
Mhm.
not only of our own self, but of women
Mhm.
in general. The
Mhm.
nitpicking about what everyone's wearing and having the right things and the right brands and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and
Yeah.
of each other's
Uh,
bodies as well. I've
Jody,
noticed too.
Jody, the link is in the messenger group. Just check the messenger, and it's in the messenger group.
Yep,
Okay.
Jody, go to your messenger. I put the link on it. Just click on
Mhm.
that, and you'll get in here quickly. Promise.
Yes. And now, sorry, Jackie, for interrupting you because
That's
Jody
okay.
wants to join.
Yeah, just going back to being really critical of ourselves. And,
Mhm.
it starts from a very young age. Oh, that's my
Mhm.
cat, sorry. Oh,
Oh, see,
Okay,
your
no
put
cat's
down.
problem.
trying to make a fashion statement.
Yeah, she's
Mhm.
got, oh, that's another
Mhm.
thing, isn't it? We could go into fur. Oh,
Mhm.
don't get me
Oof.
into
Yes.
that.
Mhm.
I was thinking of that
The,
last night, all those baby seals that get clubbed to death. And I think we've all seen that just for the sake of
mhm.
fashion. Um,
Mhm.
Minks,
but going back
seals.
to, yeah, the whole thing. But sorry, going back to what I was thinking after watching your show last week was how early they start with branding. And I went to a course on
Mhm.
this once, and it was what are we doing to our girls? But I mean, it was a general thing too, saying that these marketing companies are so clever, and branding starts from a very young age. They know that with babies, Bonds, for example, they know with babies that babies sit with their head dropped most of the time, because their
Mhm.
head's not very strong.
Their neck
And so
doesn't
they
have
put
the.
the label across.
Mhm.
They put the label across the thing, Bonds across there, because that's to start at very, very young in noticing that you've got this label and getting it used to and used to and used to. And that's a
Mhm.
parental thing too, parental thing. Like I can remember, crying my eyes out to my parents who weren't very rich at all,
Mhm.
just for these jeans that were back when I was young, going back 40 years or something,
Mhm.
that were over $100. And I got
Mhm.
my own way because I carried on so much. And it was just because I wanted this particular brand. I didn't even
Mhm.
like them very much when I put them on, but I
Mhm.
wanted that brand, and this is how we are, the peer pressure as well, peer
Mhm.
pressure, marketing, all that kind of stuff to have these things. And
To
we're
make
putting
you.
so much pressure on each other in society,
Mhm.
to have the money. And I remember getting really upset when I was a single mum and not being able to afford, the things that my kids wanted because,
Mhm.
they'd rather have nothing than not have the right brand at times,
Mhm.
and that's really screwed up, isn't it?
Mhm.
We're
Yes.
really screwed up, and I include myself in
Ah,
that.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi,
Hi.
So,
Jody.
there she
Jackie.
be.
so
Jody will
sorry I
join
was
us.
late. I had to bring my son's girlfriend home, and I thought it was a little bit later. I get mixed up with the time frames because you're on a different
Mhm.
time than me. You know what I mean?
I thought maybe you were
Yes.
out boxing and practicing on something.
Mhm. Mhm.
No, I feel like it lately though. This crazy,
Mhm.
insane mask mandate. You know, if you have
Okay.
asthma and you're sitting there pouring sweat, it's like,
hmm Okay. Now I'm gonna move to a jury. The question is, you were going to share a story about how it is the peer pressure, the society, the drugs, and the crime rate, how it is impacting the society and the very setup, the very fabric of the society, the family values.
what you talking about fashion or addiction or what's the
Mm.
topic? I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, the social impact of fashion industry, because all of these things are connected: the peer pressure, the pressure to the family pressure, and the brands you have to wear. They compel you to make the wrong choices, and you end up buying all of those things that you don't like. And the fashion models is the drugs are very common in the among the fashion models and the fashion industry. And when they use the drugs, they are connected. They start committing crimes. The deception, robbery, and prostitution. And most of the models, they end up in the porn industry because they don't see the difference between
I
right
have some
and wrong.
statistics for you.
hmm Okay, please share
Okay,
it.
so I was a methadone nurse on and off for 4 years. So I seen
hmm
a lot of these girls come in overweight. They started out with heroin and they became addicted to it. In the process, just they deteriorated very rapidly. A lot of them would end up on the corners. Very young girls that were just
hmm
nodding out. They could barely even stand up, holding onto stop signs. And 60-year-old men would literally pick them up and put them in their car.
Oh
I
my.
seen this all over. I seen it in Tampa, Florida. I seen it in Concord, New Hampshire. I seen it in Manchester, New Hampshire. So to run for one addict, back in 2016 and 17, the price for one
hmm
dose of methadone was $18. Okay, so you take that
hmm
one addict
hmm
and you have a clinic of 800 patients in these. That's usually the rate within each methadone clinic that I've worked at, and I worked at various ones. That's the
hmm
capacity that they usually have 4 dosing nurses, and they have
hmm
each dosing nurse. They start opening at 5 o'clock and they stop dosing at 11. So it's just
hmm
nonstop. Go, push. We usually dose between about 200 patients a day.
hmm
Um, so if you have 800 patients for one clinic,
hmm
that clinic, and you put this together, there's 1,611 methadone clinics in the United States right now. One
Oh my.
methadone clinic makes $432,000. You
hmm
multiply that by
And you get.
1,611 back in
hmm
2016,
hmm
just for the methadone. That's what they were. That's what the pharmaceutical industry made on the Estes
hmm
masks alone last year.
hmm
From October until April of this year alone, the Estes fashion masks made
hmm
$100 billion.
What?
hmm
Yes,
The
look it
the
up
fashion
yourself.
mask. Yes.
Yep,
Fashion masks made $100
look it
billion?
up. Estes fashion
Yes.
masks from October
Yes.
2020 until this month.
Holy
hmm
fuck.
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. We are not
Sorry.
going to use the F word here, but okay. That my
Yeah.
expression, my
Sorry.
Too
expressions are
late.
my
Yeah.
expressions are the same.
Wow.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it did.
Oh,
The masks became a fashion accessory. Like,
mhm,
That,
that's how
Yep.
that.
ludicrous this whole situation is.
Yep.
They became a fashion accessory. Every clothing shop was selling, different prints and different.
Yep.
It's insane.
It's
Yep.
more than
yes.
insane. It's totally sickening. First
Yeah.
off, that's a predatory act upon people with anxiety and fear. First
Mm.
off.
Mhm,
Second off, we're
And now they
selling that
sell.
based upon anxiety and fear. So
mhm,
anybody doing that is just as much as a demon as anybody else that's selling drugs on the street.
And they
Mm.
mhm.
even
That
have Estes even has pins of people
Mhm,
we've been married, and they'll put the date on the pin and they'll show the married couple with masks on, and they're selling
mhm,
them pins.
mhm. So they are using the fashion industry is exploiting every situation to
Mm-hmm.
just to get married. Now it has become a fashion. Wearing the mask is not a to avoid the spread of the virus anymore. And now it has
It's a
become a
fashion statement.
fashion. Yeah, it's a fashion statement. And what type of mask you are wearing? Are you wearing a certain type of brand's mask, or you are wearing just an ordinary mask?
Yeah.
All these
And the
masks are
companies.
garbage. We know this.
Mhm.
Mm.
Everybody,
Yes.
anybody who supports them, I'm
Mhm.
sorry if you've made that choice to wear the mask, but you
Mhm.
are being detrimental to your health. You are wearing materials that are chemically laden. You are wearing things that are maybe made in somebody's basement. You're
Yep.
wearing things that are made by children in slavery
Mhm.
conditions, and you're walking around saying, "Look at me, I have a mask on."
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
And
wrong.
there's a new drug now that is in Albany, New York, that a lot of the
Mhm.
people are injecting. And what it is it's pink. I can't remember the exact street name. I'll get it because my son lives in Albany. It's a
Mhm.
combination of spice and heroin,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've heard about that.
and it's hitting Albany, New York worse than heroin is. Last year alone,
Mhm.
there was 181,642,000 addicts that died in the United States.
Mhm.
Heroin addicts.
Mhm. Mhm. I think the way society and the media, the government is pressurizing the people
Mhm.
on the mask and avoid the spread of the virus. I think they should be more focused on to avoid the usage of drugs, because more people, it is jeopardizing and destroying more lives uh, than the virus.
Mhm.
And
It
it
is.
seems
I
like
agree.
the whole shift and dynamic of the society is completely changed. We are shifting our focus from the right the right problem to the wrong problems.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's division, divide and
Mhm.
conquer
It's what
is
it
what's
is.
happening.
Mhm. Yes.
We have the
Divide and
race. We
conquer.
have the race war
Mhm.
going on, and then we have the
Mhm.
vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when we come
Mhm.
back, Jody, when we come back to the aspect of fashion and how
Mhm.
drugs are involved, I mean,
Mhm.
you and I, we both know a little bit about this, and probably everybody
Mhm.
else does as well.
Mhm.
In the runway shows, drugs are rampant. We're getting,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
the models are being
Mhm.
amped up so that they can get off on the stage.
Mhm.
They're walking in painful conditions.
Mhm.
They're using painkillers to, help them walk
Mhm.
sometimes because
Mhm.
the shoes and the everything else they're walking in so that they can look really nice and beautiful walking down a runway show. In the aspect of fashion and how it's being used in the modeling industry, the drug addictions are rampant. We know that it's part sex that's involved because there's a casting couch, there's everything. If you want to get someplace and be the top model, well, you know
Mhm.
what? You got to do what you got to do, right? Okay? And
Mhm.
and this is part of it. Part of it is
Mhm.
that what is really happening behind the scenes in the fashion world, and how is it having this
Mhm.
social impact, because it's creating a social impact upon all of us, male or
Mhm.
Mhm.
female. It's a false image that's being created, where it's like you have to be in the latest style. If you're not in the latest style, well, if then you go home and argue with your parents and you say to your parents,
Mhm.
oh, I want this pair of jeans, I need that pair of jeans. The parents are
Mhm.
working double time, overtime just to pay the fashion of the child.
Yes.
I
it,
when I
it's
was working
totally
in when I was
totally
working
whacked out.
Okay. Mhm.
I was working in the
Ju-
methadone clinic, especially down in Florida.
mhm.
Um, During the time frame that I was working at the methadone clinic in Florida, it was 2016 and 2017, that time frame. Um, and strip clubs were galore. Florida,
Mhm.
that's a big sell there. We would have girls that would come in, and that's what they did. They would come in, get their methadone shot, and then they would go and they would strip. And they would come into the clinic
Mhm.
barely dressed. Um, and it was just like a vicious cycle. I knew the girls before they
Mhm.
came in. Um,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And then some of them girls who had started out wanting to lose weight on heroin moved into the strip club, and then there was a huge strip down in
Mhm.
Florida where you could just go. It's called Nebraska Ave in Florida. Every single corner you would see girls just nodding off and wasting away, and it was just pitiful. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong
just
too,
feels
Jody.
Mhm.
I was a nurse as well, and methadone, as far as I know, is a lot more addictive. And this is where the pharmaceutical companies come in
It's a lot.
yet again, and it's even
Yes.
harder to get off. And the withdrawal symptoms are even more vicious trying to get off methadone than heroin.
I would say that coming off of heroin, it's a quicker process.
Mhm.
When we would have addicts that would be out, say a person had, usually the starting dose at a methadone clinic is 30 milligrams. We've
Mhm.
had patients, there was a patient that was in Concord, New Hampshire. I don't give out names, of course. There was a patient that was in Concord, New Hampshire. He had been on methadone for 12 years.
Oh
His
my.
dose was at 360 milligrams.
That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And when a client, say a client has a slip or something traumatic happens, because a lot of these addicts
Mhm.
are trauma-based people. They have
Mhm.
trauma from broken
Mhm.
homes, whatever. I would say that 99% of the women that come into the methadone clinic have some type of sexual abuse.
Okay.
Yes.
Jody, question for
Mhm.
you. In the
What?
question working with these clinics, how many out of that percentage was coming from the fashion industry or modeling or anything like that? Would you have any statistics?
I wouldn't say that I would primarily have statistics that they were coming from modeling agencies. I would
Mhm.
say that a lot of the majority of a good chunk of the girls that would come into the clinic
Mhm.
wanted to lose weight.
Yes.
Heroin
pressure.
was
So social impact.
heroin was the gateway drug so they could lose weight. And
Yeah.
over time, I seen that when addicts, like I was telling Jackie, if an addict was off the street or didn't check into the clinic for their dose for 3 days, we had to cut their dose 3/4 that day. It was like a punishment. I would sit there and watch them, and they would have tears coming out of their eyes. They would be pouring sweat. It was brutal. They had to earn. It was like a punishment to keep the money coming.
So,
And there's like no end. It's brutal.
so in the
Yeah, it's a
impact of
cycle.
social fashion and how fashion is really affecting us, it's affecting us to the point where it's pushing a majority of the youth into making themselves I got to be body slim, body beyond body consciousness. It's about I have to follow what the rest of the world is doing because if not I don't fit in. So we're falling into these drug traps, which I've seen also was working with working with social groups and social help groups and therapy groups over the years too. People coming in, which sometimes was not based upon drugs, but now they were bulimic or anorexic.
Yep.
Because they're modeling, they have to lose weight, they have pressure on, or not, they lost their contracts. So they were actually measured with devices for body fat. So
body index meters.
Yeah,
Body
one in
index
particular,
meters.
and I remember this lady. She was absolutely stunning. Okay, in the sense of beauty and proportion and so on. And 3 o'clock in one morning, when I was monitoring this house, I could hear the rummaging going on in the kitchen. And she was in the kitchen on the floor with a garbage bale between her legs, and she was eating out of the garbage. And so much so that she lost all her teeth. She was 24 years old.
Oh my.
That's
So
the hydrochloric from the stomach coming out.
all of this, so that she could be a top model. This is what the pressure was. And not only the pressure from the fashion, but the pressure from her mother. Because her mother was on top of this as well, because her mother was a model who went through all of this. So you can see the generational trauma that has been passed down. Mother was the model. She was there. My daughter's beautiful. She's being the model. She's pushing her daughter to, you can't be this, weight, everything, look, hairstyle, nails, the whole kit and caboodle. To the moment that this woman, at her age, by the time she left therapy, it was ridiculous. I mean, in fact, found out a number of months later, she committed suicide. So this is what it's done. This is the social impact of this modeling, body image, body shaming, all of it that ties into the fashion industry. We have
Yes.
been programmed to say that this is the way that a woman is to walk, how she looks, how slim she has to be, and so on. And then the
Mm-hmm.
other side of it that goes into the sex portraying industry, where it's all about volume. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
all of the plastic surgery that gets involved, the injections, the lip modifications, the eyebrows stuff that goes on, to the point where all the toxicity that the woman's body is now carrying, okay,
Mm-hmm.
becomes detrimental to the health further on down the line. So again,
Mm-hmm.
the social impact of how the industry has been going and what we portray a man and a woman to be. It's sickening.
It's yes, indeed. Now your final thoughts, Jody. Your final thoughts.
My point of thought on this,
Yes, your
um,
final thoughts.
um, I can say that it's very, very sad. The whole
Mm-hmm.
cycle, the whole
Mm-hmm.
cycle, the whole, it's like actually ruining our youth. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the addicts that I had worked with were very,
Mm-hmm.
very young,
Mm-hmm.
in their 20s. Some of them were older, but these were women that developed an addiction and couldn't get out of it. Their teeth, the methadone, it ruins their teeth. It becomes soft. Their teeth just fall out. It's just, and then of course, you know, you have that added damage, and then you have the women who come in, and they have to start on the methadone, and as the fetus grows, the demand of the fetus, of course, has to increase with the dose of methadone. So when these babies are born, they're born with methadone in their system. They have to be titrated off. And a lot of them end up on the NIC unit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and like I was telling, you know, I've seen babies when I was doing my clinical rotation in Manchester that were born from addicted mothers.
Yeah, I've seen
Listen
that a
to
great deal.
Abrupto,
Me too.
it's just brutal.
Not good. Mm.
The whole thing is just one big vicious cycle. It's like, when do you stop? It's either the fashion industry or the pharmaceutical that are making billions and billions of dollars off of people's fears, off of people's peer pressure that's forced upon them, the ideology of what's acceptable, what's the norm, what's not. You know?
Yeah.
There's a common denominator here, isn't there, about greed and money, and you know, and also the manipulation of the humanity, you know, our individualism, you know, and just trying to squash us down again, you know, dampen our creativity, these pharmaceutical companies have so much to answer for, like even in today's day and age, where you know, we're talking about you know, the vaccine and things like that, which we won't go into, but you know, everything is cause an illness and then solve it. It's they're doing everything. They cause an illness by what they're giving you, and then they're solving
And they're constantly
it by
covering
giving
it.
you more.
Everything.
They're not solving it. Then they're keeping it going because of the side effects. But going back to, you know, our final thoughts, for me, it's still coming back to, and most of our topics have been this, is coming back to that sense of self. And when you're feeling good about yourself and not having a go at other people for other things and trying to make people feel bad about certain things, you know, and bullying and harassing and pointing out what you perceive as their faults, you know, and that again is because we don't have a strong sense of self. And I'm not saying I grew up, I was bulimic. I had a lot of things going on as well. And I was skinny anyway, but that was the pressure that I felt on myself as well. But it's just horrific, the pressure that we're putting on ourselves, and just come back to self. That's all it is again. It's come back to self, strengthen yourself, strengthen your soul, strengthen how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And just that everyone is you in a different aspect. So help them grow, help them feel good about themselves, give a compliment, make them feel great, you know, or not make, you can't make anyone feel a way, but be kind with your thoughts and your words.
What I
Missed
was
you,
gonna
Jackie.
So they have that. Now, I think getting your final thoughts.
I think Jackie, you said it quite well. Coming back
Mhm,
to self, and one thing
mhm,
that I've learned and always have been is that I am who I am. I
mhm,
choose the way I wish to dress. I could
mhm,
care less how somebody looks at me or what somebody has to say. Honestly, I
mhm,
mean, that might sound like it's a little bit egotistical, but it's not.
mhm,
It's self respect. I respect
mhm,
myself utmost. First off, always myself first. If I'm in respect of myself, I carry respect for others. I
mhm,
don't carry judgment. I have opinions. There's a difference between a judgment and opinion. And in today's world, where we're running this 3-second attention span, and it's all about color and fashion and fad, it's time, like Jackie said, empower the self. Come back to
mhm,
what is truly important at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, it's quite simple. I sleep
mhm,
with me. I don't sleep
mhm,
with anybody else. I can share space with somebody else, but I sleep
mhm,
with me. When I wake in the
mhm,
morning, I wake with myself. How do I want to present myself to myself, not to the world?
mhm.
This is the
Yes.
way that I walk. I walk in my truth of who I am. Many people who see me go into a job site, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I take pride
Mhm,
in the way that I walk, and like the way I look. Not for
mhm.
you, but for me. It makes
Yes.
me feel good to be colorful, or it makes me feel good to be in something that's comfortable to wear rather than something that's a work overall, chaffing my
Mhm,
manly parts and then getting home at the end of the day and
mhm,
going, why? You know,
mhm, mhm. Yes.
it's totally upside down, Ali. I mean, Hassan, I look at I have clothing from different parts of the world. I have
Mhm,
these, I forget what they call them. I mean, it's just like a gown. Okay, it's like this
mhm.
big gown. It's so
Yeah.
soft,
Yes.
and you're free underneath. It's like there's nothing,
Yes.
and it's just
Like
like,
a
ooh, that's
caftan.
nice.
I've never worn it, but I get the feelings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Yes.
it's somebody said to me once, like, why are you wearing that?
Mhm.
That's for that part of the world. It was
Uh,
a lucid comment or a lewd
uh,
comment, and I said, you
uh,
know what? Doesn't matter what culture it's from.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it. It feels good on my
Yeah.
skin, and I feel free.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yes.
do I have to be from
Yeah.
another part of the world to wear this?
Yes.
This I'm
Uh-huh.
wearing right
Uh-huh.
now is not in the men's fashion section. It's in the
Uh-huh.
women's fashion section.
Mm.
It's
Yes.
soft,
Yes.
nice and soft. It's
Uh-huh.
colorful.
Yes.
Okay. It even says on the back of it, woman's size, whatever, because I couldn't
Uh-huh.
find something that what I was looking for that had a hoodie to my
Uh-huh.
liking. And what I liked
Uh-huh.
about it is it had little gloves on it.
Uh-huh.
So, you know what?
You're wearing it now. Okay.
Wear how you wish to
You
dress,
whatever.
but don't
Yes. You.
wear it because somebody says you have to wear it.
Yes. And thank you guys. Thank you, Jory. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Gary, for joining us. And we had a very detailed discussion on the social impact, that how it is impacting the whole society, ruining the families, the young girls, and especially the young generations, the methadone and the heroin. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a vicious cycle. It starts with the drug abuse, uh, then the drug is committed with crimes, and the crimes, there are other things like the porn industry, the sexual abuse, the sex
Next
slavery,
week's topic,
and yes, there are so
fashion
many
and the
things
porn
that
industry. I mean, that could be a
yes,
hell. Oh my God, we can get so in
yes,
hot water on this one.
mhm,
Or
yes. No, we are going to discuss the topic in detail later on. Thank you guys for you. Thank you, Gary, for your suggestion, and thank you for joining us, all of you guys. And we'll meet next week, and we'll have a great discussion on some of the topic next week. Thank you,
Okay. Thank you.
Edwin.
Have a
Thank
good
you, Donna.
night. Bye.
Yes,
see you
yes.
everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Good day, good night, wherever you are.